Welcome back to our channel HD Ultra Rare Coins. If you are a coin collector, watch video carefully. I will tell you about coins that make you a millionaire overnight. Top 1. The Elizabeth II 1 penny of 1998. Yet, like many stories in the world of numismatics, the tale of this particular coin reaches far beyond its ordinary appearance. It is a story that weaves together history, artistry, minting mastery, and a collector's dream that would eventually transform what seemed like an everyday coin into an object of desire worth millions. To truly appreciate the significance of the 1998 one-penny coin, one must step back into the broader history of Britain's coinage. The penny itself carries a lineage that stretches back over 1,000 years. It was introduced during the reign of Anglo-Saxon kings, a silver piece that would dominate English currency for centuries. Over time, the penny evolved in both size and metal composition, shifting from silver to copper, and eventually to bronze in 1860. By the time of Queen Elizabeth II, the penny had already undergone its most radical transformation, decimalization. In 1971, Britain abandoned the centuries-old system of pounds, shillings, and pence in favor of the decimal system we know today. The decimal penny, smaller and lighter than its predecessors, was born, and it would remain a fixture of British pockets for decades. By 1998, the penny had already been in circulation for nearly 3 decades in its decimal form. It was minted in copper-plated steel, a decision made in 1992 when rising copper prices forced the Royal Mint to abandon the traditional bronze alloy. While this might sound like a mundane change, collectors understand that such shifts mark important turning points. Coins are, after all, silent witnesses to economic realities, and the move to cheaper metals was one of many subtle reflections of the global financial currents of the late 20th century. The 1998 one penny was, therefore, part of this new era of coinage, lighter, more cost-effective, but no less symbolic of Britain's enduring traditions. The obverse of the coin featured the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, as had all coins of her reign. But by 1998, the Queen's image had evolved multiple times. The version on this coin was designed by Raphael Maklauf, a sculptor whose portrayal of the Queen had first appeared in 1985 and continued until 1997. However, the 1998 penny is unique in that it featured the new effigy designed by Ian Rank Broadley, which had been introduced the previous year. This transition between portraits makes coins of the late 1990s particularly fascinating, as they capture the evolution of the monarch's image in the public imagination. Rank Broadley's design was notable for its realism. Unlike Maklauf's idealized portrait, this new effigy embraced the Queen's mature features with dignity and honesty, reflecting both her longevity and her steadfast presence as head of state. For collectors, this design shift marked an important chapter in numismatic artistry. On the reverse, the coin carried the familiar crowned portcullis with chains, a design originally associated with the Palace of Westminster. This heraldic emblem had long been a part of British symbology, and on the penny it served as a reminder of the deep connection between coinage, governance, and history. The chains of the portcullis symbolized security, authority, and the weight of tradition, while the crown signified royal oversight. To the average person, it was just a small emblem stamped on a coin they might toss into a jar at the end of the day. But to those who study coins, the imagery held layers of meaning. Every line, every curve, every symbol carried significance, linking the present with the past. The production of the 1998 one-penny coin was, in most respects, routine. Millions of examples were struck for circulation, destined to clink together in tills, vending machines, and children's piggy bank. Yet, among these countless pieces, there are always exceptions, anomalies, and variations, coins that somehow escape the strict controls of the minting process. These are the coins that collectors dream of finding, and the 1998 penny would become one of those legends. Stories began to circulate of misstrikes, off-center strikes, and even experimental compositions, coins that slipped through the Royal Mint's rigorous inspection and found their way into circulation. Each of these errors transformed an otherwise ordinary penny into a treasure, but beyond minting errors, rarity is also shaped by time and survival. While millions of 1998 pennies were minted, most have been lost, worn down, or simply discarded as the years passed. For collectors, condition is everything. A penny from 1998 that remains in pristine, uncirculated condition is already rare. Combine that rarity with a historical quirk, such as a transitional die or a misprint, and suddenly you have a coin whose value skyrockets. The allure of such coins. Top 2. The United Kingdom Elizabeth II 1 penny of 2005, a coin that millions held in their hands without realizing the hidden value it might one day command. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a small copper-plated piece of change, the kind that jingled in pockets, paid for sweets, or was dropped into a charity box without a second thought. But as history so often reminds us, appearances can be deceiving, and within this unassuming penny lies a tale of heritage, artistry, and rarity that has captured the attention of collectors around the globe. The year 2005 in the United Kingdom was a time of transition and reflection. Queen Elizabeth II had already reigned for more than 5 decades, and her presence was felt across every aspect of British life. Coins bearing her likeness had become iconic, stretching across decades and representing different phases of her reign. The penny itself, though often undervalued in everyday use, stood as a vital part of Britain's currency system, a symbol of continuity through changing times. By 2005, the coin had already undergone several design changes since decimalization was introduced in 1971. Yet, this year marked something particularly special, as subtle variations and unique minting characteristics made some examples of the penny stand apart from the rest. To appreciate the importance of the 2005 Elizabeth II 1 penny, we must step back into its origins. The very idea of the penny has roots that stretch back over 1,000 years, to the silver pennies of Anglo-Saxon England. Those small, hand-struck coins were the foundation of English currency, surviving through centuries of monarchy, conquest, and reform. By the 20th century, the penny had transformed into a bronze coin under Queen Victoria, before eventually becoming copper-plated steel in the modern era. Its journey reflects the history of Britain itself, resilient, adaptive, and enduring. And by the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, the penny had become a vessel not just of economic function, but of national symbolism. The design of the 2005 1 penny coin carried forward the familiar imagery that many collectors hold dear. On the obverse, we find the effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, crafted with precision by Ian Rank Broadley. This portrait, introduced in 1998, depicted the Queen in a more realistic and mature manner compared to previous depictions. Unlike earlier effigies that conveyed youth and regality, Rank Broadley's portrait showed the Queen with dignified age, wearing the tiara that had adorned her since the early years of her reign. It was a design meant to capture truth rather than idealism, a reflection of Britain's longest reigning monarch as she truly was in that era. Turning the coin to its reverse, one is greeted by the crowned portcullis with chains, a design deeply connected to British tradition and heraldry. The portcullis, a gate often associated with the Palace of Westminster, symbolizes authority and parliamentary democracy. The chains extending from it evoke the strength of governance, while the crown above it emphasizes the monarchy's role in unity and continuity. This design, first introduced in 1971 by Christopher Ironside, remained a constant feature of the 1 penny for decades until a redesign in 2008 shifted Britain's coinage to the Shield of the Royal Arms series. Thus, the 2005 penny represents one of the last years of the classic portcullis design, making it an important marker in the evolution of British coins. Minting details from 2005 reveal fascinating insights into the production of this coin. The Royal Mint, with centuries of history behind it, struck millions of these pennies for circulation, using copper-plated steel as the base material. At a diameter of 20.3 millimeters and a weight of 3.56 grams, it carried the standard specifications of its time. But as with many coins, it is the subtle anomalies, errors, and variations that turn a common coin into a rare treasure. Collectors and numismatists soon began to notice that certain examples of the 2005 penny displayed misstrikes, double strikes, off-center features, and even planchet errors. Some bore slight variations in the thickness of the rim or uneven copper plating that gave them a unique appearance. It is precisely these small differences, often overlooked by the untrained eye, that elevate a penny from a piece of pocket change to a sought-after collectible. But beyond errors, the appeal of the 2005 Elizabeth II 1 penny lies in its symbolic timing. By the mid-2000s, there was already growing discussion about whether the penny had a future in British coinage. Inflation had reduced its purchasing power significantly, and many argued that it cost more to produce the coin than its actual face value. This debate added a sense of uncertainty and importance to the coins minted during this period. To collectors, owning a penny from 2005 was like capturing a snapshot of a currency that teetered between tradition. Top 3. The United Kingdom Elizabeth II 1 penny of 2007, a coin that might appear ordinary to the untrained eye, but to collectors, historians, and investors, it is a portal into a remarkable era and a story worth millions. Today on HD Ultra Rare Coins, we dive deep into the fascinating tale of this particular coin, its origins, its symbolism, and the reasons why it has become a true treasure in the world of collecting. The story of the 2007 1 penny begins with a monarch who had already defined an entire age. Queen Elizabeth II, whose reign spanned decades, was the longest-serving monarch in British history by the time the coin was minted. In 2007, she had already marked 55 years on the throne, and Britain itself was undergoing changes both economically and culturally. The coinage of this period reflected stability, yet carried within it subtle design details that gave every piece its unique character. The 1 penny coin, small in size yet massive in symbolism, was part of the decimal coinage system introduced in 1971 when the United Kingdom shifted from the centuries-old pounds, shillings, and pence system to the decimal system. By 2007, the decimal penny had been in circulation for over 3 decades, but collectors knew that specific years yielded coins that were not only functional currency but hidden treasures. The year 2007 is one such year, one that today excites collectors across the globe. At the front of the coin, the obverse, rests the ever-iconic portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. In 2007, the design used was the 4th definitive portrait created by sculptor Ian Rank Broadley, a portrait introduced in 1998. This design was notable for its realism. Unlike earlier portraits that softened the features of the Queen, Rank Broadley presented her with mature dignity, unafraid to show age as a badge of wisdom. Collectors often point out that this portrait marked a shift in how the monarchy was represented, no longer just an idealized symbol but a real human figure who had lived through decades of profound change. The letters around the portrait read Elizabeth II DG Reg. FD followed by the year 2007. These inscriptions, abbreviated Latin phrases, stand for Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen, Defender of the Faith, titles rooted deeply in centuries of monarchy and tradition. Turning the coin over, we encounter the reverse, which in 2007 still bore the iconic design of Christopher Ironside. Introduced in 1971, the reverse featured a crowned portcullis, a gate with chains, symbolic of the British Parliament. The portcullis was a heraldic emblem long associated with the Palace of Westminster, chosen to represent the penny as a coin tied directly to Britain's governance and authority. This design endured for decades and remained until the great redesign of 2008, when the Royal Mint introduced Matthew Dent's Shield of the Royal Arms. For collectors, the 2007 1 penny is therefore particularly special, It represents one of the final years of the Ironside reverse, a design beloved by generations. The penny's technical specifications were modest yet significant. It was struck in copper-plated steel, a change introduced in 1992 to replace the original bronze composition. This made the coins lighter and cheaper to produce, though it gave them a distinctive magnetic property. The weight stood at 3.56 grams, with a diameter of 20.3 millimeters, and its smooth edges made it instantly recognizable by touch. While to millions of Britons it was just small change in pockets and purses, numismatists knew that in specific minting years, even a humble penny could hold extraordinary value. 2007 was a curious year in British coinage. The Royal Mint struck millions of one-penny coins, ensuring their wide circulation. But within those millions, rare varieties, minting errors, and pristine uncirculated specimens emerged as treasures. Some pennies were misstruck, with slight shifts in alignment, doubled designs, or imperfections that turned a common coin into a rarity worth collecting. Others, preserved in proof sets or untouched mint rolls, remain in breathtaking condition even today. Collectors value these coins not just for their scarcity, but for the stories they tell, how a tiny error in the mint could transform something ordinary into a priceless jewel. To understand the significance of the 2007 one penny, one must step back into the cultural and historical landscape of that year. Britain in 2007 was marking both continuity and change. Tony Blair resigned as Prime Minister, handing leadership to Gordon Brown. The financial crisis that would soon shake the world was already looming in the background. At the same time, London prepared to host the 2012 Olympic Games, a moment of pride that would place the city back in the global spotlight. Coins minted in this era are therefore not just currency, they are physical witnesses to a moment of transition in modern British history. Collectors of the 2007